Hey there, boys and girls, Lestin here. Have been a while since I made one of these, and believe me, I wanted to. But haven't got the time for this since we didn't have a break in game till now. Especially since the game have been rebalancing units a lot lately. Remember, this tier list could change in no time for the same reason. I wanted to make a video about all the rebalances made, but I thought it might be better if I just speak about how those changes impact in-game in this tier list. So here we go, before it changes again. God tier. Morana with Ultimate kept her place in God tier. Even with the debuff they gave her patches ago, she is still strong. Just a bit more kinda weak if you can say so. Then, hey, is that Omega? Yes, you're seeing right. Omega with Ultimate have reached God tier. Why do you ask? Well, if it isn't obvious, she have received 2 buffs in the last rebalance patches, being the second one very huge. All her abilities receive a buff. The breaking point was her ability to give HP to your commander for each stunned enemy on the enemy field, especially since they also increase before the amount of healing. In summary, she has become the best utility unit in game. I mean, just look at her. Really high attack, decent HP, can stun for 2 turns enemies in line, increase healing of your commander, a steal attack of enemies on summon, and to top all of that you have to deal with that twice, thanks to her Rebirth Ultimate. This also means that if you pair her with Morgan Commander, then you will have to deal with the shield twice also. And if you use Wanda, you will have almost free HP the first 3 turns, thanks to Wanda first ability. Only fast solution is to suppress her somehow. Now, starting with the meta tier, we still have Morana without a skin here. No surprises. 16, powerful as always with her ultimate and very needed in comps nowadays, since so many players use Kitty, Lola and Omega with ultimate now. Kitty, we got a nice fix on her ultimate skill some days ago, a very needed one. Ultimate ability no longer activates when Kitty's force shield is triggered. This means you can now suppress her with Florence or Orvin for example, which is a nice way of slowing down the insane sea of shields Kitty provides. But besides that, Kitty keeps her position since she is still strong. It's just more balanced now, if you can say so. Then we have Arachne, a brand new unit hero on the tier list. With or without her ultimate, it's on meta tier. A very strong unit that deals a lot of damage in one turn and protects your commander from being hit when requirements met. Ground control skill and infection skill, with decent attack and HP. Ultimate is not that needed, or better say, it won't affect too much damage unless enemy got some immune units on the field. Then we have another new unit, surprisingly without her ultimate. Why? Well, overall you want your buffs to apply, so since her ultimate is only for 1 turn, it's not that really needed. In most situations you will want the extra buffs to apply on the first turn she is summoned, but it's true her ultimate can save her in some situations, so debatable spot. Besides that, she got massive crowd control. The longer she is in play, the most dangerous she became. Very tanky unit that gives a big chunk of health to your allies and a decent attack buff that will become higher with time. Works especially well with Omega, so that's extra aura points to be in this tier. Blanche with ultimate. Since her last buff, she became one of the strongest and annoying mercenaries in game. If used correctly, she can get a ton of HP and attack on the turn she is summoned. Thankfully, we got ways to deal with her now. Kirsten for example, so it's not god tier just because of that. Belle, she's still meta tier. She got a decent buff to her base HP and skills recently, which means more healing, especially with android buffs. And believe me, in this actual meta where tons of damage is being made, healing is very welcome. Genie, still meta thanks to all the models and minions summoned in the actual meta. By Anders, of course. Thora, she got a minimum fix to her ultimate and then she got buffed again on the next patch, in base stats and second skill value for mid reboot levels and onward. In conclusion, she is still the strongest tank unit in the meta. Mitsuki with ultimate has been performing especially well lately, since androids. On lower leagues she is a nightmare, and in higher leagues she is still strong. Not overpowered but strong. In some situations she can kill you in 1-2 turns if conditions met, and with her skin she can annoy your opponent even more because it will be more difficult to kill the last clone. Lola, after her big nerf she received, you can't kill anymore any ranged enemy unit on someone with Shock and Ave alliance bonus, which made her weaker in terms of countermeasures, and the fact it's harder to trigger her ultimate on the turn she summoned, this gives indirectly all ranged units a better chance to survive and made them a bit more viable now. For this reason, Lola is no longer god tier, but don't get me wrong, she is still annoying and very strong thanks to her shields. Once you manage to trigger the first shield on her, it's hard to get rid of her. Nicole with a skin. Biggest damage on summon for the moment in Lyssa, and if you have some units on the field, it's practically game over. Skin gave her more survivability, so it's very nice to have it. But main reason to level up her relationship are the stats she gets with it, plus 108 in attack at GM League. Now, I want to dedicate a special tier, not because they are stronger than the tier below, but because they are especially good against the meta tier units. Starting with Kirsten with her ultimate. Might look weak and hard to use, but when she is used correctly, she is very useful. After her third skill got fixed, being able to suppress before opponent attack comes very handy to deal with some annoying units like Omega, Blanche, Asha, Lola, Kitty, and some others. And with her ultimate, you can also deal damage on opponent turn, which is always welcome, since opponent will avoid her line most of the time, so the other abilities of Kirsten can be used for more turns. Nymeria, with or without her ultimate, become stronger also. Some could say she got a big nerf, but the reality is that overall she became stronger, cause she can now increase not only her HP but her attack too, at least for one turn, which was her weak point. She can still do a lot of AoE damage, so she is still good against crowns, especially against the actual meta which shields are everywhere. Why? Because Health Siphon doesn't trigger shields. She's also very tanky and a decent damage dealer that can reach very high amounts of attack. She can still be counterplayed, so it's not that broken. Nymeria is also very good against immune units. Yes, we're talking about Morana and Regina here. She can not only kill them thanks to her Health Typhoon and Poison, but also get decent HP back after killing Morana. Bloom received a tiny buff recently, nothing too impactful except maybe for the first skill buff. This unit is especially strong now, thanks to all the models and units being deployed nowadays, so more damage to her on-spawn skill. Especially good against Arachne and Mitsuki. She can also be a good replacement of Lola in terms of counter-range units. Looking into the next tier, we have Bea here. With or without her ultimate, after the biggest nerf she received, she is no longer meta. But she is still strong in the right composition, high health, agility, and big indirect damage when infection kills some enemies. Especially good against those Mitsuki Arachne spiders or pets you can find in the field. The nerf was very needed, but maybe they could have found another way to nerf her. But now, since a lot of shields, she has become also less viable. Sky, debatable. Since her last buff, she became a bit stronger. Enough to make it to the meta tier? Could be. What we know for sure is that she is a very strong tank that helps for survivability in general. She excels with Soul Commander. If at some point she get an ultimate skill, she could almost definitely become meta. Natasha have also scaled some tiers, thanks to her constant buffs the game gave her in the past patches, and the Android buffs especially. She was a glass cannon unit that only lasts one turn always, which was how this kind of unit were meant to be. But since in her last buff they raised her base HP, well, in some cases she can last 2 turns. The amount of buffs she received by her own abilities is enough to make a ton of damage on her spawn, so having her being able to survive some units made her a threat. Of course, since she has no other mechanic of survivability, she is still weaker than the meta tier units, especially if Omega is summoned first. Then we have Regina. She got 2 nerfs recently in 2 different patches. Values might look tiny, but it made a decent impact in game. She is less tanky for sure, not to the point she is no longer viable, but enough to give the opponent a chance to kill her more easily, especially in lower tiers. Kitty without ultimate, still strong thanks to all her kit of abilities. Omega without her ultimate also get a better position this time, thanks to all the buffs she received. Of course, she is easier to kill without her ultimate, but still can be very annoying in many leagues, especially low and mid leagues. Florence stays in this tier. We now see more people using her again thanks to Omega being now in the meta, and to suppress Kitty since she can no longer avoid the suppression with her own shield if she has ultimate, and also comes very handy because we have a lot of minions summoned right now, so more units on the field, more healing Florence will make. Corbin got a big nerf. His position in this tier is debatable. 70% damage value made by his first skill now might make him look weaker, but since we have now so many units that can buff HP, the change is not felt as much. You can even now pass through Soul Shield and hit it at least with a 30% value of his first skill. In fact, his nerf was very needed, or he would have made a massive damage with all these new HP buffer units. And the fact that the first skill no longer counts models when calculating damage makes a lot of sense, and it's very appreciated, because Genie plus Corbin was very annoying to deal with. At least now we have more ways to counter this ability kit. Lucretia for some reason has received a lot of nerfs. She's still strong overall all leagues, but not as impactful as before. Nicole without her ultimate. Only reason she is in this tier is because she lacks of survivability, but her damage is still a lot. Sumni is still strong even after the tiny debuff she got, since all the models and minions summoned by the androids are syndicate. This benefits a lot for her kits of abilities, making her very strong on a spawn. Combined with Arachnid, she's making some destructions in some situations. Then we have Yumiko. She is still strong and keeps her position. She's still viable in the current meta. Charlotte with ultimate, again, debatable tier position. Immune can save you in some situations, especially on second spawn of the bird. If it got destroyed before Charlotte, can also help you to stack at least one charge and avoid electrocution on the turn she is summoned, for example, or to avoid getting damage on her for Gia to not be able to banish her with her second skill. Thora without her ultimate, a little less impactful in the current meta than her ultimate version, but still strong enough to be one of the hardest units to get rid of. Asha with or without her ultimate, no longer in meta tier thanks to Kirsten and Omega. She's still strong, but she now have more counters in Lyssa, so she is less impactful. Blanche without ultimate is strong but lacks of survivability given by her ultimate. Hilda with ultimate, she received a meaningful buff a while ago, making her to reach 868 pierce damage at max level, which can help you deal with many of the actual range units in Lyssa. Very high attack and decent survivability thanks to her refreshing shield and also for the antidote given by her ultimate. Lola and Mitsuki without her ultimate kept their positions in this tier. They are both still strong in all the leagues. Orin with her ultimate is still viable since she can slow down your opponent thanks to her ultimate while buffing your own allies by a big amount of attack. Victoria got a very needed fix in her ability to make her max amount of multi-attack steams easier to achieve at lower levels. Her ultimate is not as impactful to be in a higher tier than her non-ultimate version, but can be useful to deal with all the models we have in play right now. Wendy. She stays in this tier for now since we have other units more impactful in the meta right now. Grace got a big fix in her kit of abilities, making her for sure more viable now. But she still lacks of survivability. Her ultimate made her a bit more useful in some situations than her non-ultimate version. Rose. Since she received a buff recently, she is more viable now. Very high attack and massive attack buffs. By herself, it's not really a threat and it's very easy to get rid of her, but combined with other units could be a real threat now. Still, needs some testing. Starting the next year, we got Amy. She got some nice buffs in her kit of abilities. Health Siphon to all her abilities instead of Lifesteal. As we told before, this pretty new mechanic is the perfect counter against shields. She can work now in some comps thanks to her new synergy. Same thing with Eve. Since now her skills works with Health Siphon, she is more viable now. She can get high numbers in HP and could be annoying in some leagues, especially low and middle leagues. 16 still works fine in low and middle leagues without her ultimate. Ivy got a buff but nothing special. Kaya also works fine in low and middle leagues, but since Omega, she got relegated. Lilith is still decent. Orin without her ultimate high attack and can still work in some comps. Hilda high attack but not as her ultimate version. Salma got so many debuffs that I'm surprised to see her still in some comps in GM. Probably because they like the Salma plus Mitsuki combo, but honestly, there are better options. Sharon, with her recent buff, she become tankier and very useful to scale middle leagues. Wendy, without her ultimate, nothing have changed, so she stays the same. Kirsten, without her ultimate, lacks of real damage to the commander, but can still work in some comps. Grace, without her ultimate, is slightly weaker than her ultimate version. Lorraine stays the same. Harper, with her ultimate, make her more viable now since she can add some survivability to your melee units. She can work in some comps dedicated to make her work. Otherwise, she isn't impactful. Scarlet got a nice buff also. Her kit of abilities works better now and made her a bit more impactful. She excels in middle leagues and could help you scale. At higher leagues, not so much, since there are so many counters and immune units in play. Then we have situational units. This one only serves mostly for one-turn purposes and for some very specific combos and situations. The only surprise here is that Dominica is in this tier now, just because of androids. In lower tier, she can be annoying to deal with. And in the last tier we have the base units of the game as usual. Some of them could work now if you have androids leveled enough, but still not quite sure how impactful they can become. And that's it for today's video. Leave a like and subscribe if you want, and if you have some opinions, I'm sure you do, leave them on the comment section so we can talk about it. Remember, this is my personal opinion based on my experience in game and might be different from others. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.